Welcome to the CER Retake guide. And this is for the CER test. It's the PS2 Learning Set 3 and it's the one on substance. And if you're watching this video, more than likely you've got the reasoning wrong on this test. So you're going to have to watch this video and you're going to have to rewrite your reasoning. At least I hope you watched the video. I guess you could fake it, but then are you going to get the reasoning wrong again? And again, if you get a proficient or advanced on all three parts, the claim, the evidence, and reasoning, you no longer have to take this test. So it really is to your advantage to watch the video, study the video. You might want to watch it a couple different times, even while you're typing up your CER. So that way you do a bang-up job and you're done with it. Now, the reasoning is probably the hardest part of the CER. What it does is it ties together the claim and the evidence. It shows you how or why the data counts as evidence to support the claim. It provides the justification for why this evidence is important to this claim and includes one or more scientific principles. Now, the scientific principles, you had 3 of them to use. And if you've already taken a look at the claim, we know that it talks about the type of substance is what you should have talked about. And so there's only one CER scientific principle for this test that talks about the type of substance. So it should be number 3. Now I would say about 1/3 of the people to maybe half the people, maybe about 1/3 of the people who got the reasoning wrong, you did not use a scientific principle. And I've told you over and over and over and over again, if you don't use any scientific principles, it's going to be automatically a beginning or developing grade. You cannot pass it if you don't use a scientific principle. So make sure you use one. And the best thing you can do is in your paper, tell me this is the scientific principle. For example, you could say, according to SP number 3, and then all you have to do is copy and paste it. According to scientific principle number 3, the type of substance an object is made of influences the amount of chemical energy. I actually had some people who did that and they bolded and underlined. So as the reader, which is me, who's also the grader, sees the scientific principle. So you probably have already finished up the evidence part, or you had the evidence part correct. And if you did, and you already knew that you weren't supposed to use this one, that you use this one because it's 0.5 grams of aluminum and it's 0.5 grams of steel wool. That way you're only comparing the type of substance in mass. How much of each you have is a constant. It's not changing. So when you write your reasoning, I'm really looking for 4 things. Now I'm not going to show you the answer because if I showed you the answer, you would just copy down word for word what I had and you wouldn't do it yourself. But rather, this is just a guide to help you think through what to write. So the first thing you can do is restate your claim. So when you restate your claim, just copy and paste it. Now, hopefully your claim is correct. Most people got the claim correct, but there were a few people that got it wrong. So hopefully you've corrected your claim. So I would start out by restating your claim and put a space, hit the space bar and tab down 1 and start a new paragraph. In this paragraph, you may want to start by using the correct scientific principle. So again, this is where you might say, according to scientific principle number 3, or according to SP number 3, and then just restate it. So according to scientific principle number 3, the type of substance an object is made of influences the amount of chemical energy. Okay, so now you've restated the claim. You used the scientific principle. The next thing you have to do, which is probably the hardest part, is you have to explain how the scientific principle or principles, in this case you only need 1, is used to connect the evidence to your claim. So take a look at what you put for the evidence. Now, one of 2 things happen. Either you already took the evidence part today because you had to redo it, or you got the evidence correct. But here's where you have to explain why this scientific principle is important. And a lot of people missed it. So when you're looking at this data, you have to somehow explain that this scientific principle, the type of substance an object is made of, influences the amount of chemical energy. We saw this because when we used the 0.5 grams of aluminum, the temperature changed 32.7 degrees Celsius, as compared to the 0.5 grams of steel wool, which changed only 4 degrees Celsius. So you notice how I did that? Did you notice how I explained why this is important? I explained that when we compared them, there was a difference. The type of substance does make a difference. This one had 32.7 degrees of change, and this one had 4. Now, if you see the 37.2, if your paper says 32.5, that was a mistake, I fix it. I'll still accept 32.5, so don't worry about that. But did you notice how I compared these and explained why that was relevant to this scientific principle? And then the last thing you need to do is have a conclusion. And the conclusion might start out with therefore, and just talk about what you did. Therefore, the type of substance does, we go back, therefore the type of substance is a factor in determining the amount of chemical energy. And then you might say that determines the amount of chemical energy because when we mixed aluminum foil with the cupric chloride, we got a much larger temperature change than when we mixed steel wool. Now, you didn't use the numbers there, but you already used them up above when you talked about them here. So that's the last thing you have to have. So take a look at your reasoning. Did you restate your claim? Did you use the correct scientific principle? And did you explain why the scientific principle connects your evidence to your claim? This is the important part. This is where you have to say, this is why I use scientific principle number 3. This is why it's important. This is how it supports the claim. So again, I'm not going to give you the reasoning. You're going to have to type it out. If I showed you the answer, a lot of you would just copy it down word for word. You wouldn't really learn how to do it. You would just learn how to copy what I have written down. So go ahead and retake this. And I'm hoping that your scores will improve. Because remember, if you can get a proficient in all 3 parts, you no longer have to take any CER tests this year. So make sure you ask questions if you have them, and you can ask during the test. I may not be able to give you the answer, but I can help guide you. So do your best. Thanks.